Oh no.
Scared you, didn't it? Hi, y'all. Welcome to Five Strike Final, the only highly distributed audio discussion discussing all things Atlanta United. Atlanta United, who still has not won a home game at Mercedes-Benz Stadium this year. But hey, it wasn't that bad, was it?
Honestly, it wasn't. I thought it was a fun match to watch. It was.
Okay,
22 shots.
yeah,
22
why not?
shots. There was like a bunch on target. We hit the post twice. Zeko Barco hit the post twice. He was actually really good on his free kicks, by the way. We didn't really talk about this. In fact, we haven't talked about anything about this match. We just came in this room. For the last hour, we've just been sitting with headphones in, not talking to each other. So this will be kind of interesting to kind of dive into this and see what we think, because I have no idea what you think.
Yeah,
but I'm serious. I think it was a good match.
I think we're on the same page. I think we were both writing recaps that kind of came to the same conclusion that this wasn't the results, obviously, anyone wanted. But tonight, I think for me, especially someone who's been much more skeptical of Frank de Boer than you, was not necessarily a turning point for me, but something that has moved the needle back in the direction of being in favor of waiting this one out for the long haul tonight. Atlanta United really seemed in control of the game, except for two really bad mistakes.
They basically had the same amount of possession that they had in their last game here against Philadelphia Union, which was a terrible game.
0.8% difference.
Yeah, 0.8% difference or something like that. And but the difference was they created tons of chances tonight against a team that's pretty good, probably a better team than Philadelphia Union. I would say FC Dallas is probably better.
Yeah.
Better organized, better structurally, especially and better defensively than New England last week. They played well, they created the chances, but they just didn't. Yeah, they didn't get to that. But I think Frank de Boer will be very happy that the team was able to control the possession and then create something out of that possession, which is kind of what he's been going
right, which is exactly the big thing. This is as close to the Platonica deal of a Frank de Boer perfect game as we've been so far, and that's the most encouraging thing. And there has been somewhat of a progression towards that, right? It started off very poorly, and I remember looking at you after the Cincinnati game and asking, did you see anything encouraging? And at that point, the answer was no. Tonight, I can say that pretty much all of it was mostly encouraging again, except for two really bad moments. Jeff Leonowitz talked about those moments of the game. He said that as we have done in the past, and I think by in the past, he's meant with FDB, with Tata, we've been a little naive with teams going forward. And of course, they get called out twice, so one very early in the game, one very late in the game, both inexcusable, but both fixable mistakes, right?
Yeah, totally. And I think that this team is still trying to find its footing in terms of finding that balance between attack and defending, keeping your solidity. In the beginning of the season, we saw it too far to the defensive side. We saw them kind of obsessed with kind of keeping their defensive shape, not wanting to lose that kind of organization. And now, in this game we saw tonight, we saw a lot more players push forward very aggressively. In fact, you had two fullbacks in Breck Shea and Michael Parker's pushed fully up the field in an attempt to try to get some chances going, and they did. But they did leave themselves exposed at times. I thought generally they dealt with those chances well, but on occasion, when those long balls had some success, they had some trouble with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought Miles Robinson was really good against tonight, cutting those off, especially.
He eats those long balls up.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when you can go one-on-one, just body somebody. It happened a few times tonight, and Miles is going to win that against anyone in the league, for sure.
Yeah.
Except for maybe Alan Gordon. Is Alan Gordon still playing? I don't know. But yeah, I think the mood overall was that this was a positive tonight from the players, from FTB, from everyone just kind of in the locker room.
Yeah.
Jeff Leonowitz also had a really good quote where he mentioned that the FC Dallas goals was the way they were scored was something they did prepare for, right? The execution wasn't there, but it's something they worked on all week, just cutting off those balls in transition when they were behind the ball, and it didn't quite work out this time, but it wasn't a lack of preparation from FDB. It was more a lack of execution on the part of the players tonight, and that's going to happen. And I think, Joe, that if this was a game kind of in the middle of the season that just had randomly happened in the middle of a somewhat normal winning streak for Atlanta United, we would shrug it off, right? But in the context of the first few games with Frank de Boer, people are going to jump on it and say that, this is just another example.
Right.
I think if you're paying attention closely, I think you're seeing improvements.
People want to try to make sense of things that happen, and they do that by constructing narratives and trying to make connections to things. And sometimes they are true, and sometimes they're not. I think we're missing. We need to get down to what Frank DeBoer said in the post game. I think it's by far the most interesting thing about what has happened, what has transpired in the last couple hours.
Mm-hmm.
The guy cannot communicate well.
He needs to take several PR classes.
Yeah, he needs lessons.
Crisis communication, most importantly.
It's the way he phrases things, right? It's not the general gist of what he's saying. I'm totally on board with. He talked about the team creating chances, being better, all this stuff, and then he says, "But I can't score the goals for them. They have to do that." And it's just like, you had it. You were this close.
So close, man. You were so close. And again, he's probably not wrong.
Yeah, no, he's not. Yeah.
Again, but it's gonna come off very poorly.
You could say it like, next time we'll create, next time we'll score the goals. I have the confidence in this
Which
team.
Which is exactly what he said.
Right.
Immediately following that.
Yeah. You just can't let these little bits come out.
He had to add that in. You could kind of see the war wounds on his face when he was saying that, because it's something he's thought time and time again as he's been run out of a couple of different places now that he can't score the goals. The players have to, and again, he's not wrong. But again, the difference between reading Frank DeBoer and hearing Frank DeBoer talk sometimes can be somewhat jarring.
But I'm telling you, the players were not even they were upset that they didn't get the 3 points. Right?
Absolutely.
And Michael Parkhurst was upset just with the way that the fact that these fans haven't seen this team win a league game in this building yet this year.
And it showed about the 83rd minute after the second goal when this place cleared the hell out.
Yeah. But I think they were positive.
Including the supporter section.
They were generally more positive than I expected them to be perfectly honest, the players. I thought we were going to go into a locker room that was going to be completely despondent, which they typically are after most losses. And it was quiet, but talking to the players, they were actually much more positive individually than I expected them to be. They were saying that, this is the kind of game that you can really build on. And it's easier to go into the next game when you've played a game like this, where you've actually done things well and you've seen success essentially up until the ball crossing the line. Yeah. But, you've actually experienced those positive things. As opposed to not doing anything right, and you go into training and I say, where do we start?
Sure. Yeah, no, the mood in the locker room and the press conference really kind of changed my entire recap and outlook, right?
Yeah.
Everything just kind of seemed more positive and more, just more believable.
Yeah.
Right? The things are going in the right direction. And frankly, I feel like next Saturday against Colorado, we may finally see this team kind of kick it up a gear.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one where they're going to just score as many goals as they possibly can. There will be no let up in that game. But yeah, no, I'm the same way. My brief going into the post game was, does it seem like the Salina United team, every time they take a step forward, they take 2 steps back? Mm-hmm. And honestly, I think Frank DeBoer actually had a quote that said, "We took two steps forward."
Yep.
Which is not really a phrase I've ever heard, but
how are these steps measured? He's making these steps. What steps are they?
Usually we take 1 step at a time, but 2 steps is also good. I wonder how many steps we would have taken if we had won this game.
And how's it compared to a hop, skip, and/or a jump? We'll never know.
But the narrative was totally changed based on what everybody was saying post game. So
yeah, absolutely. Maybe the narrative on Twitter is somewhat different. They did not get to experience the post-game comments and/or locker room. Our mentions were obviously on fire. The DSS mentions on fire.
It's really fun recording Frank DeBoer's post-game press conference because I'm sitting there with the phone, and I've got it pointed at DeBoer, and I'm just reading the comments, and it's lots of DeBoer out, and at least today there was somebody in there that was actually stepping into the comments of the live Periscope chat trying to defend him, which was the first time I've seen that. But that's always a fun experience to I feel like I'm passing notes behind someone's back, or it's he has no idea that all these negative comments are just scrolling on the other side of the screen that I'm pointing at him.
It is amazing. It's fun to watch. I like peeking over your shoulder while it's going on. A lot of the comments and our mentions are saying that this the possession was boring and not structured, I guess, or not focused on towards getting a goal. And while I disagree entirely, I guess is where I was going with that. It really seemed like there was something kind of in mind tonight. There wasn't quite the end product, but you do end up with 22 shots. And if we had to take a guess at the XG, we do end up winning that one, I think, as well.
I can just tell you exactly. Right now, we
won.
won the expected goals 2.78 to 1.47. That includes 0.8 for the goal for the penalty. I'm sorry, so
Right.
it would be more like 1.98 to 1.47. So
And
by about half a goal.
And there's an obvious counter argument there, which is that Dallas scored in 6 minutes, right? And so
Right.
at that point, they're going to play a little further back. But
Sure.
honestly, it didn't seem like they were bunkering. This
No, it
this
didn't.
wasn't a team that was just sitting back and allowing things to happen. Atlanta was really pressuring them.
I mean, I think that was Dallas' strategy coming in, and Atlanta knew that was going to be their strategy. And like we talked to Jeff said, he said that they trained these exact, like the goal that they actually scored, the second goal that they scored. He's like, we trained that exact situation all week, and
They
I think
executed perfectly.
yeah, it was just perfectly executed by Dallas, and it's just one of those things where I've been in training. Just because they're training it doesn't mean they're necessarily going to pull it off every time, but that they were prepared for it. And I think that shows in kind of the overall output at the end of the game. The team had 22 shots, just completely dominated the game in every respect except for the score.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we're looking at the shot chart right now, and it's just
A lot of
like
dots
you
on our side.
can't ask for really much more.
Yeah, no, not at all. There's a good question here. There's actually a good question in the mentions.
Awesome.
Good work, guys.
Who was it?
Osmar Padilla.
Nice.
I hope I'm saying his first name right. Clearly, a confluence of factors are leading these results, but what do y'all think is the single biggest, most glaring issue that needs to be fixed? I think it's a really
That is a
sharp
good question.
He also uses the word confluence, which means he's smarter than 90% of y'all. The single biggest, I think it just might be just little mistakes, little errors,
Yeah.
loss of focus, everything like that.
It's funny, Tata Martino always used to say, yeah, we just had individual errors.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, well, you can't really argue with that, I guess. Like, yeah, of course, some guys made
To be fair,
mistakes.
Tata, I'm a much better communicator.
Right.
Even though
Yeah.
he didn't speak English. It's cool.
No, but so I kind of have two thoughts on this, but like, I guess my first thought on it is there is an overarching issue with the team, which they've been fighting all season, which is, like I said earlier, is just how do you, just finding that right balance of attack and defending.
Yeah.
Like I said, Atlanta was throwing guys forward tonight, and it was leaving some spaces for Dallas to try to exploit. Fortunately, we have some very good center backs in Miles Robinson, as you said, who was able to just snuff out a lot of those long balls. But I think that's kind of an overarching theme around this Atlanta United team, is just trying to find that balance. So that's kind of like a big picture. I think other than that, you would say there's right now currently a weakness in midfield with Eric Rometti injured. You're basically going with Nagby and Lorendowicz, which were fine as a pair. Yeah, they were really good.
Yeah.
It's just like at the end of the game when you want to bring on fresh legs or something, like you don't really have another guy that can come on.
Dion Pereira.
yeah. We only use 2 subs.
Yeah, which is crazy. I will say that one of the press members did hear Mario Williams say, "Use the fucking sub," at some point on the touchline. I was a photographer down there, so that was interesting. Hopefully, wow, there could be a lot to unpack there, but we'll see how that kind of goes on down the road.
That's a good question, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a decent question too from Carlos J. Rivera, who asked how much of this is on FDB. The players need to put in a goal. We keep getting beat by keepers. Last year, this goals went in. I think the main thing to kind of point out here is getting beat by keepers, and tonight Jesse Gonzalez was extremely good.
Yeah, it just happens sometimes.
Yeah, he went full Zach Steffen, and if you go full Zach Steffen against Atlanta United, you're going to cause some problems.
So let's unpack. Let's go a little deeper though. Let's go back to the question: how much of this result was on FBB? I would say 0%.
I think
I think that
everything right.
Yeah. I mean,
everything he could have.
The team
right.
played well. Joseph Martinez missed the best chance of the game for either team. It was a chance that had 0.65 xG, which is nearly as good as a penalty, and he missed it by a lot. Like it wasn't close, and he would it was right outside the 6-yard box, like right in front of the goal. It was toward the end of the game, but you just expect him to make those, and it goes back to Frank de Boer's point. They have to score the goals, and it's true. He shouldn't say it like that in public, in my opinion. But
But he is getting set up for those goals, and it may take a second for him to kind of calibrate, I guess, with this. It's not excusable, but still, it's something that can very easily be adjusted and fixed, most likely. I do think Jacob Inman brings up a good point here. He's talking about the home record and talking about fans pouring out. This was not this was, again, a PR loss in a lot of ways for Frank DeBoer, which, again, is his biggest demon and his biggest fight right now, in my opinion. It's not with the players in the locker room, it's not with anyone in the organization, it's with the folks in the stands right here, who are frustrated, right? And who don't want to sit around and don't want to pay money to come watch this team lose and get incrementally better, right? They want it now, especially from a team that won MLS Cup last year. And it's concerning. It's concerning. How often can you go and say, have patience, when folks are pouring out at the 83rd minute?
And I think Michael Parker's touched on this and what he said after the game. He was like, it was clearly on his mind. He's like, we appreciate the fans. We appreciate how many of them, come and pack this stadium every week. And I think that he's kind of like sensing that. I think that the players sense when the fans are leaving before the game is over, that there's a little bit of, that energy is kind of, the balloon is deflating a bit, If it was sky high when Atlanta United won MLS Cup in this same field last year, it's amazing kind of how much it's starting to deteriorate only, 4 months later?
Yeah.
So,
He mentioned that they didn't want to take the fans for granted, was the way he put it, which is a really interesting way. You could tell it was really weighing on him.
Yeah.
You could also tell that the Buckhead sections were super, super empty by the end of the game. Come on, rich folks, do better. But again,
they're not taking market.
Supporter section also emptied out.
Yeah,
great tifo today, though, guys.
That was really good. And I don't think DeBoer helps himself. And there's nothing he could really honestly do about this, but just his general demeanor is so hard to get behind. He sits for most of the game. He talks in a very monotone voice, and that's just the way he is. That's just that's just the way he is, and he's just not like what we're used to, I guess, in that sense. I don't know. Yeah, Tata would be up for 70 of the 90 minutes, screaming, and he wasn't going crazy, but he was showing energy during the game.
Frank DeBoer lets his trainers talk for him. Shout out to the trainer who got thrown out of the game.
Thrown out?
Correct.
Yeah.
He was very correct.
They got overturned, where Joseph later scored the penalty. Derek put something in the chat here on YouTube, and he was about LGP. I don't remember the exact question, but we should talk about this. Is he an undisciplined player? I find this pretty interesting because, under Tata Martino, it was a very attacking style, right? And he would leave his defenders exposed, and he wanted them to win these individual battles. And if they could do that, then it gave the team an edge going forward. And I think that was one thing that Frank DeBoer wanted to try to go back on and not put his defenders under so much pressure early in the season, and it got Atlanta in a totally defensive kind of bunker mentality mindset. I could say so. Is LGP undisciplined? I don't know. I think that the team works best when he's in those positions, and it's just something you're going to have to live with because while he might have to sit out some matches with suspensions. I just think the team is in the best position with him in those winning those battles.
It's undisciplined, but not to a detriment to the team. I mean, none of the fouls that came off tonight ended up in really anything for FC Dallas, and about to say they won't in the future, but I mean, it's just part of the package, right? The same way Joseph is going to be offside sometimes and be really pissy when he comes off and he's taken off for a substitution. It's part of the full package of LGP. If he starts being cautious, you're not going to have the same really solid defender that we've come to appreciate over the last few years. So I'm cool with trading the yellow cards for full-fledged LGP.
Yeah, I am too, and I think it's just it all comes down to on the pitch, how many risks you want to take, where you want to take those risks, and where those risks pay off in terms of benefits. I like to think of it like American football, and it's you never see a team that is number one in the league in rushing and passing. Okay. Partially because that's kind of mathematically impossible. But it's hard to be very equally as effective in both. Usually there's a trade-off, right? You're running the ball to try. There's a strategy involved in. It doesn't make sense to try to be the best at both.
Sure.
Or even a team having the best offense and the best defense. Usually a team might have a great defense because the offense is slow and plodding and can eat up time of possession, all that kind of thing, and helps the defense. I think that, in soccer, there's just those kinds of, it's the yin and the yang, the push and the pull,
Sure.
and you kind of just have to balance those things out.
Yeah. Soccer's a zero-sum game, is what we're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what that phrase means.
So I'll change anything else with P and read a book, Joe. Let's see. Other comments that we had included. Everyone kind of seems to be like, it's either fire to bore or hey, we look a little bit better tonight, and that's going to be the great civil war for Atlanta United's fan base, I guess, for the next little bit here until the results start coming in. We are probably last at this point now. I think the Revs had a game today that they were a point behind us or something like that. I can't quite remember, but still, it's the sixth game of the season. I know y'all are gonna get tired of hearing that, but keep thinking Seattle. Keep thinking Seattle last year, who all of a sudden turned into world beaters after a terrible start and finished second, all that kind of thing. Anything else from the folks at home?
I'm seeing a tweet from Jacob Inman, who we've already discussed tonight, talking about Matt Doyle saying that Dallas had us right where they wanted us the whole time, and Atlanta was never in control. I just don't buy that at all.
No.
And if you were a Dallas fan, you'd be so thankful that you held on and got the 3 points tonight. Like,
yeah.
I don't know what else to say. Like
to give them credit, they put on a really great performance. They did really well.
They executed exactly what they need to do.
Exactly.
And that is the blueprint on how to beat Atlanta United.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so if that's executed perfectly, then
then sometimes
that's it.
Sometimes you have to go your way. And another thing DeBoer said I thought was really interesting after the game was he was just talking more philosophically about soccer. And he was like, the sport is unfair. Sometimes the best team doesn't always win, and that's why it's so beautiful. That's why we love it so much, because anything can kind of happen on any game. on any given Saturday.
A little tear.
Or Sunday. Or Friday.
A little tear with the Dutch flag. Just not
Right.
He also mentioned that if they play like tonight, he thinks they win 28 times out of 30.
I like that.
That might be a stretch.
I like that he said we win 28 out of 30
and we draw one.
Lose one and we draw one.
Amazing.
What is okay?
Amazing. I have no idea what kind of math he did there.
This was the one he goes. This is the one we lose, and then we might draw one other one.
So there you go. There's the template for the rest of the year. It's all going to be wins and one draw thrown in there according to FTB himself.
I wonder if some of the perception of this game is skewed by the commentary, because I've heard a lot of what Taylor Twellman was saying on the broadcast was how Atlanta hasn't been able to muster anything in the attack. It was just very negative, and I just didn't see that at all. Even at halftime, the team was creating a good amount of chances. They were even better in the second half, but I wonder if that's kind of skewed anybody's perceptions of it.
I'd imagine.
Probably does.
If Taylor Twellman was up there just shoot talking somebody, then it's going to affect things negatively.
I think
that's why we're here.
I think we should talk about Barco as well.
We should talk about Barco. Zeke was good.
He's looking like one of the better players in the league. Which he should.
Does he have $15 million yet? I don't know.
Yeah.
But he's been very, very, very solid.
Yeah.
Probably 6-7 fouls tonight. Had a couple clank off the post. Really love him in that 10 role we're finally getting to see him in, which we've been screaming for since Miguel left.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it proves that we're always right about everything, and you should just listen to us. But been excellent, really. I think the big question going forward is how does P figure into everything?
Right.
And I think eventually we see him take over for Tito. I think that's the move. Tito and Gressel both the wings tonight were not good at all. Gressel especially.
I think that'll be kind of. We have not yet seen this season Joseph Martinez playing a striker with a band of three behind him, consisting of Pity Martinez, Tito Villalba, and Ezequiel Barco. So those three big Argentine players. It'll be interesting to see if they can fit in the same team. If Frank de Boer wants them to be in the same team, maybe that's too attacking in his sense. He wants some more defensive solidity out of that group of three. But he does seem to be playing a pretty structured 4-2-3-1 at this point, from what I can see. He's talked about it. He said 4-3-3, whatever. He's not really that upset or that concerned about what we call the formation. But looking at it on the field, it's clearly Jeff Lorentowicz playing next to Darlington Nagbe in central midfield with three above them and then the striker.
And I will say too that just looking from above at the shape and the way players were interconnecting tonight, it was very. There were actual, like, you could look at it and see like triangles, right?
Yeah.
You could look at it and see shapes. You could look at it and see where the spacing was. You could tell that the players knew where they were supposed to be, which was not the feeling I got at all from the first two games, right? So that's huge, I think, going forward. As long as that's established, they're going to keep getting better at executing through it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this team does start to look more like I don't want to keep like kind of comparing everything to like the Tata Martino team, but it does kind of start to have that verticality.
Yeah.
You know, those that vertical passing, the Tito flying up the flank, guys, trying to play through balls in. It's getting there. I think we're all seeing the progress. It's just really frustrating not getting the results at this point in time.
Well,
Someone asked if we have an Instagram. We technically do have an Instagram, which you might not even know. I made an Instagram for us. Has no post yet.
For this show,
Yeah.
specifically?
Yeah.
You think people want pictures of us?
Well, I love my anonymous accounts.
Yikes.
Sometimes I need an anonymous account. But I would say follow Dirty South Soccer on Instagram. That's where I tend to, like, if I'm at training or something and I post something, it's usually to Dirty South Soccer.
Okay, nice. Very cool. Anything else you want to add before we get it?
No, I think we pretty much covered everything.
Yeah, nice. All right, cool. That will do it. Oh, Jacob Inman confirms that the commentary was very negative from Taylor Stallman. Thank you, Jacob, for that. That solidifies our point, as always. Again, always right. That'll do it here from Statesman Stadium. We'll be back with y'all on Saturday. Hopefully, we may have a midweek show kind of pop up here and there. Keep an eye out for that. Follow us at 5 Track Final on Twitter. You can follow DSS at JSouthSOC. You can follow Joe Patrick at JPatrick200, and you can follow me at J_Sam Jones, and then at SB Nation, and tell them to give me the editorial internship. Thank you.
Yeah. Get it at should they at Spencer Hall?
No, not Spencer.
Who can they add?
Maybe Ryan.
This could hurt your.
Maybe.
Yeah, Nanny. He's in charge.
He's in charge now, right?
At whoever you want, but get him this editorial internship. Also, subscribe to the Dirty South Soccer YouTube channel, which if you just click right down there, it costs nothing. It takes about 0.3 of a second. Smash.
Yeah. Right, cool.
And do that. It would make us happy.
It would make Joe happy, especially because we're really hard on this. That's going to do it here from Mercedes Benz. Like I said, keep an eye out on your podcatchers, things of that nature. And everyone cheer up. It's going to be all right, I think. I think I see the end of the tunnel.
Colorado's going to be fun, I think.
Colorado's bad.
5 goals. 5 goals.
This should be